gentlemen, we're here with another episode of In the Bag with our good host, ABB. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, and with our other co-host, Robbie C.
Oh, what's up? It's your boy.
It's funny, you all can't see it, but my screen name when we record is your boy, just so you know. And then Robbie's, of course, is Leroy. So great. It's very great.
I'm telling you, it is like we went and I played disc golf this past weekend with some Birdie fan members, and we like big old trip. We drove over to Georgia for it. Super fun. But one of them like added me on UDisc, and if I'm ever on your UDisc scorecard, it's in there as Leroy as well. Mm-hmm. And that threw him for an absolute loop while he was like trying to call out names and scores, and he was like, "It's oh yeah, Leroy and Justin. Okay, yeah." So
that's too funny. Yeah, hey, I have to say it's been nice. I'm trying to get back. I'm trying to slow down life a little bit and like make a little bit of time for some disc golf because I don't play a whole lot anymore. It's like I throw for in the bag and then I'll play occasionally if like someone's in the area or like someone's visiting, we'll play. But I don't play a lot of casual rounds anymore. I got to play some casual rounds last weekend. It was pretty exciting. And then we had our first Foundation Winter Weekly that we play at 7 a.m. Before work, and
y'all,
obviously took the W on that, Robbie.
I saw. Not only did you take the dub, you stomped.
Yeah, it's weird. Jason and I were talking about this. I shot 6 down for the round, which is like a tie for my best round there at Timbrook. But I think the difference in where I am as a player now versus like even like, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago is like 8 or 9 months ago, I'd have been like stoked. I'd have been like really, hype on that score. And I was still happy, obviously, with the score, but I was like, yeah, looking back, I probably could have got 8 under just because I made one dumb mistake. And then I missed like, I had like a really weird chain out. It actually hit the chains, went in the basket, bounced off the bottom and came out. But,
hurts.
Yeah, I know. So I'm like, I probably could have shot 8 down, but hey, I shot 6 down. That's what I shot. But just knowing that there's room for improvement, just trying to push toward more like another level. I feel like I've been plateaued for a minute. So I'm trying to really push myself to like the next like level, whatever that is for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's nothing wrong with like walking off a course where you've shot your personal best and telling yourself like, oh, that was great, but I could have done this and this, right? Like we're always obviously going to leave strokes out there, but I hear what you're saying in terms of yes, you did tie your personal best, but because the floor has raised, it's not like, oh, you got today's minus, or you got that -6 because you also, sure, you had the spit out and sure you made a dumb mistake, but you also had like a 70-foot throw in. It's like, oh no, I did business as usual. And that allowed me to get the 6 down. And therefore like the opportunities, I'd say probably you could have done better than 8. If knowing that course, you probably could have gotten to 9. Like and push it a little further, but I like that mentally, like you were accepting. Well, I couldn't. It's not 14. It's 8. Like that's very realistic. Super small changes, and you're there. So,
well, I think it alludes. And if you listeners haven't watched Robbie's video on talking about, I don't know what the video was called, Robbie, so forgive me, but talking about like the thirds, like it's like I think for me, like whereas right now that 6 under would have been my top third in the past. Now it's kind of like my middle third. Like I expect to shoot that now. And I realize there's days I'm going to shoot way better and there's days I'm going to shoot way worse. But like it's a good feeling, I guess, that top third is now kind of slowly sinking into the middle third. And I have like another like level I can go up.
Absolutely. That improvement is what we're looking for at all times. Raise the quality of your game. And a person who's raising the quality of the disc golf merch game is Flippy Disc Golf.
Yeah.
Ooh, you like that transition there?
That was top third transition talking about. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah. Aaron, Flippy, thank you. We got some cool stuff coming out for Flippy. So be on the lookout for that. That should be out like very soon. I know I keep saying that, but we're making sure it's great. We want it to be like absolutely like the best. But some stuff kind of, I guess, a little sneak peek tying into the Bogey Bro Tour a little bit. Some apparel that kind of like, maybe perchance there was a iconic course perchance that they played, and perchance maybe there's a graphic tee.
Ooh,
I don't know.
Ooh,
You don't know.
Perchance.
So thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Flippy. Thanks for everything you do for us. Again, Robbie C merch is there. Foundation merch is there. Some other of your favorite creators merch is there. Look at the link in the description. We got some savings for you, and Aaron does too. And Flippy, thank you guys so much for everything you do for the podcast. And hey, other teaser, we have a new spot, like long-term sponsor, kind of rolling in next week. So
okay, yeah,
be on the lookout for that. Robbie knows what it is. We've been working a little bit in the background with them, and had a phone call while I was at USGGC, and very excited for this one. It just makes sense, I think. So very excited about that.
I am excited for it. On our side of things, we started running into an issue as well, and this company could solve that very easily. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of problems, we all got problems. 99 problems, but in the bag ain't one. Let's bring our guests in today.
Oh, I like it. Firing away. Welcoming into In the Bag, Eli. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty great. Thanks for having me on.
Come on. For those of you who are audio listeners, you're like, wow, he sounds really good. And the visual listeners are like visual watchers. I guess you can be a listener and be visual.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a podcast. So regardless, you're listening to this. That's not true. Now I'm offensive because I'm about to get canceled because, some people are like reading the subtitle. Anyways, Eli has a really nice setup. Eli, what part of the country are you coming to us from?
I'm in rainy Washington. So the sun's just coming up.
Okay.
Awesome.
You are here with us early in the morning. So we appreciate the sacrifice, Eli. Appreciate the sacrifice, man. You said full-time student, so hopefully if you have classes, you're not like one of those, my first class is at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon today, and you guys woke me up way early in the morning. So, Eli, we want our guests to get to know you, man. So we got a few questions that we ask. First of which is, how long have you been playing disc golf?
I'd say I'm just about at 2 years right now. I played a little bit as a kid. My dad's been playing for about 25 years, but it was only a couple rounds. And then my roommate in college got me into it fall of 2021. So we're right at 2 years.
Awesome.
That's awesome. 25 years. Is your dad are you like from the Washington area?
No, I'm from Hawaii actually. So yeah, that's where he mostly played.
Okay.
Hawaii's got the disc golf game locked down.
That's awesome. Well, okay. Well, man, that is, I just have so many questions about your life in general now, outside of disc golf, but we got to keep it focused on the disc golf. So we set you down, we put you out in the field, and we're like, all right, Eli, how far can we set the basket that you feel like you can consistently reach it on a golf shot? Not necessarily like, I'm just going to open up and throw this huge flex line or whatever. Golf shot, backhand and forehand. How far out are we setting the basket?
I would say for backhand, I'm feeling good with a fairway out to about 350 or so.
Okay.
I've kind of been throwing fewer forehands recently just for the longevity of my elbow, but I would say I'm good to about 280, 290 on a forehand.
Okay. Awesome. That is fantastic distance for both, honestly, for both sides of the ball. Very much appreciate that. So that's distance. Let's talk about putting. We put you on the putting green and we're like, all right, Eli, we got 10 putts from 15 feet, 10 putts from 25, and 10 putts from 40 feet. How many are you making at each station?
I would say 9 to 10 from 15. Once we get to 25, maybe 5. Okay. 5 to 10. And then out to 40, I would say 2 or 3.
Okay. That's not bad at all. Also like that consistency. My final, I got 2 more questions. One, I don't ask everybody, but do you play any sanctioned tournaments, things like that?
Occasionally, maybe. I've played 2 so far. But
okay. Awesome. Do you have a rating? I
do. I want to say it's 881 or something.
That sounds like
I would say that matches up. Yeah.
So awesome. Well, our final question is, what would you say is the biggest strength of your game?
I would say shot diversity. I feel good throwing a Hyzer flat or in Hyzer. I throw a lot of grenades. I got good little kind of scrambly roller game. So I'd say that's my biggest strength. Okay.
Now, Washington disc golf, I'll be honest, I like him. I'm trying to make very sure that I separate Oregon disc golf and Washington disc golf because
Mhm.
I know of like Milo and Portland, which are more of a wooded vibe. What's the golf like in Washington?
In my area, which is like Olympia, it's really heavily wooded.
Okay.
So shorter holes, there's some par fours, but mostly you're looking at maybe sub 350, super tight tunnel shots, tons of rough everywhere. So that's mostly it.
Okay. That's good to know so we can
Mhm.
factor in on recommendation and whatnot. And also, I think the especially for someone who's currently in school, like the the beauty is finding a disc that works for the area you're at, but also, okay, if you go home, you got longer holes in Hawaii or whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
Like I mean, you're probably throwing off top of mountains and volcanoes out there. That's at least that's what I'd be doing. So
That's
awesome. Well, let's dive into your bag, Eli. Let's start with the challengers. Are you putting with those challengers?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever throw them, or is it just sheerly putting?
No, I'm going to get some that I'm going to throw.
Okay.
But for now, I'm just putting with them. I don't like them getting super chunked up.
Man after my own heart. That is,
Yep.
I
that's
like
the way to go.
something. Yeah, I mean, it's wrong with me. I'll just go ahead and say it's wrong with me. But when I play disc golf with someone and I see them grab their throwing putter and throw it, it hurts my soul so much. I even like Trevor and Hunter in a video. I want to say it was Tuesday's video. They were like played the Tuesday or Wednesday. It played like you use a disc, you lose a disc, and I saw Trevor like throw a rainmaker. I was like, that is not me, brother. So
I'm the same way. I want the integrity of my putting putters to last as long as possible. That's how I putted with the same ones for like 2 years, as I just only putted with them. And if it was going to be like hey, I might miss this, dink off the basket, roll down into like something, I would probably throw something else. So I get it.
yeah. I even went so far as like my putting putters inside of my bag I don't practice putt with them
Yeah, same.
because that way I'm not getting extra wear and tear on them so that they last longer. Okay, so you have that. That makes it a very interesting transition to the next two discs then, which would be, or I guess next three discs. You've got a Hydrogen by Loft, which is super unique. I know every time I've talked about one speeds and one speed battles, I usually talk about sort of the big three and the Polecat, the Berg, and
Glitch.
the Glitch. Yeah, I
Mhm.
just disrespected so many MVP people there. They are furious with me right now. Thank you for saving me there, Eli. I usually talk about those three, but the Loft always gets chunked in there. The Dillo always gets chunked in there. But I've never met someone who throws the Loft. So what does it do for you?
Yeah, so I actually threw the Berg for about a year, and I was finding that it was I liked the ranging aspect. You know, it wouldn't blow by the basket, but I felt I had to throw it pretty hard. So then I tried the Zeppelin, which is a weird discraft mold, super huge frisbee, and it was kind of similar, but it was so glidey that I was going way past the basket. So I grabbed the Hydrogen from a used bin, and it was great. It's easy to throw. You can throw it nose up, and it'll still go straight, but it doesn't have the super glide of like a Glitch or Zeppelin where it's going to put me super long if I miss my line.
Interesting. Okay,
So I'm
how
pretty
does
much
that?
only using it for approaches. And
Okay.
maybe sub 200 foot tee shots, something really short.
I was going to say that was my next question. Is so because as someone who throws a one speed and has that, Brad, you tried to be a Dillo guy for a little bit, if I remember.
I wanted to be.
Have you moved on to something else, or have you just removed the one speed from your bag?
No, I don't feel like I need it. I mean, again, maybe this is a little arrogant, but I feel like I'm pretty good at judging distance on my approaches, and I get there's a different utility for a one speed, but if I'm more comfortable being like, okay, I'm gonna do this with my zone, or I'm gonna do this with an NV versus like, all right, let's add another mold in, and then I have to throw it very specific. So I think that's why I probably haven't gone there.
That's actually one thing I would say. If there's any mold that's on the kind of chopping block to come out of the bag, it would be the Hydrogen, just because I've been finding I'm getting a lot better with touch in that normal putter category.
Yeah. And that is what intrigues me is not that you have the loft in particular. It's the other two throwing putters that you have mixed in there.
Right.
In the watt and the spin, because I've heard lots of people, myself included, say that if you like the glitch, but it feels either a little too touchy for you, the watt feels like a max weight glitch. What are your thoughts on that? And what do the watt and spin do for you that's pushing the hydrogen out of the bag?
So the watt came as a replacement for the Makana, which is a latitude disc, and it was great. It's the zero hard plastic, super straight, and I've been living in Colorado for the last 8 years or so that's why I learned to play. And the Makana was flying super straight, and I figured, well, when I come down to sea level, it's going to be flippy. So I tried the watt, and it's perfect. It flies exactly as the Makana did up at 5,000 feet. So that's mainly what it's just super straight shots, and if I can make it finish a bit right as well.
Okay, awesome. And so the spin, was that a disc that you found in Colorado and gets used less, or what's the vibe with the spin at sea level?
You got it just right. It was a nice little kind of Hyzer flip, slow turn putter up in Colorado, and then down here it's like I feel like I can usually just make the forehand work for something that short and that far right. So. I honestly haven't thrown it very much down here at all.
Yeah, the spin is it's a great disc for a short amount of time for a lot of people. Like if you're a beginner, the spin could be phenomenal. If you don't have the forehand, I think you worded that really well, Eli, of I can make the forehand work if I need that shot. If you don't have the forehand, this is a very easy throwing putter. I would almost think of the spin like a shorter uplink.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, because for me, I've only thrown an R2 spin, and for me, it was very like in the way that the uplink you barely have to throw it to get it to turn. I felt like the spin was like that for me as well, which is a nice shot to have.
Yeah. And I could see where the hydrogen kind of fits in the middle of that. Probably it's not as stable as the watt, but also like it isn't trying to go right before it even leaves your hand for a right-handed player like the spin is. So very, very curious. I'm going to be, the watt has not been around long enough that I think people are like beating in watt. MVP plastic takes a while to beat in anyways. The watt, to my knowledge, has only come out in neutron plastic.
Yeah.
Which also takes a long time to beat in. So I feel like I'm going to say this, and some person's going to ring me up in the comments. So hello to you, and know that I acknowledge you. So I don't speak in absolutes; only Sith do.
Correct.
But I I don't think anyone has a watt beat in enough to try to fully move to the spin department yet. And very similar to the glitch that has more stability when you actually give it power, the watt shines there. So that's fascinating to me. I'm going to be that's going to transition me to the zones. Let's head to the zones. Brad's a zone guy, so he may have more questions than I do. But first off, of all the molds in the world, why the zone?
It's superior. It's superior. That's right.
Of course.
You're outnumbered on this podcast for once, Robbie.
Yeah. I think it's just, it was the first one that I got. I got an ESP zone probably too soon after I started playing for how stable it was. So it's just what I like for the grip. I like that it's shallower than like a tactic or something. And they're usually not super puddle topped. So they're nice and flat. But yeah, I just love the flight, and you can get them in 100 different plastics.
Amen. Yeah. So what two zones do you have?
I have an ESP glow zone. That's the more overstable one.
Okay.
So that one's nice. I just got it a week ago, and it's working great. It's nice, standard zone, overstable, reliable. And then the other one is a Putterline soft zone, and that one's great. That actually kicked the envy out of my bag because I have it beat in now for about 9 months, and it's really straight with a nice fade, and it's great on forehands. Both of them are.
Yeah, I think if you're a zone thrower, I'll go out on a limb. This is not an absolute, but I guess this is how I feel, and I think a lot of other people can relate. If you're a zone thrower, you want your zone beaten enough that it's like pretty straight and then has a hard finish. Like that's like the ideal zone that I want, but you also like want your zone to be very overstable if you need it to. So you almost have to get two of them, and which is kind of where where I am. I've kind of went from I had 2 to 3 zones in my bag at any given time because of that. But now I found if anyone had a chance to get your hands on the Z Jawbreaker zone, that's I kicked out the Get Freaky, and that's in my bag now because off the shelf it is like laser beam straight with like that beautiful overstability that a zone has. And then for like something a little bit more overstable, I actually took out the Zone OS and I put a Peppermint in just because it has a very similar feel but has more overstability for me. But Eli, I think I can't get behind like the super soft gummy zone. Although the Z Jawbreaker is pretty gummy, right? But it's something about it still being premium plastic for me that I'm okay with. But getting to like that putter blend kind of arena, and maybe it's just me personally, but I just don't feel like I get as clean releases as I like to. Do you ever have that issue, or are you just you good to go with it?
I have hyperhidrosis in my hands, so I get really sweaty palms and fingers. So the grip is a necessity. I can't throw, Champion plastic or Z or stuff like that. So it's maybe I'm sacrificing a little bit of the release, but the grip is so much worth it for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then my experience now, ESP Glow, I will say doesn't have this problem, but I can't most of the guys here love an ESP zone. I can't get behind it because it is so slippery for my hands. I just don't feel like I can clean release it. But the Glow, again, whatever the mixture is there, seems to not have that problem. So with you having like sweatier hands, like have you tried a normal ESP zone and same problem?
Yeah, I've had I think 3, and they were the grip was terrible. I would maybe use them for backhand, but forehand they would just slip right out. So I actually used a TI Flex zone, and that thing was amazing, but it got so puddle topped that it had pretty much no glide left, so it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, those are beautiful zones too. All right, enough of the zone talk. Sorry, Robbie, but
oh no, I'm here for it. And what I'm hearing, I love the idea of the grip. I wish that I had the luxury of what Brad has to be like. I don't really like the grip of the base plastic one, so I can just switch to premium plastic. And by the way, every year they're going to come out with every random combination they possibly could of Z Sparkle Flex, titanium glow nukes, or glow zones, and it's going to be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Why not? Whereas meanwhile, I'm over here just like, I'll take just a star, or just a champion pig. That'd be nice. So I get it on terms of the grip and all that. Like one of the big things that I appreciate about our Pro Zones is that, or not our Pro Zones, our Pro Pigs, is because it has that grip. I'd be very curious, hand wise. You talk about on the ESP zones how it like slips when it's, and I wonder if part of that is not only the plastic, but the shallowness of the zone for when you're trying to. Because I know a lot of people, that's what you like about the zone, is that how shallow it is, allows you to have those clean releases, feels like it doesn't get hung up on the finger. But that was always my issue. It wasn't a plastic thing for me. It was when I feel like I gave it the beans, by the time I was like halfway through my throw, it was like coming off back here. So I never had it still on my hand to finish the pop of the forehand. Have you had any experiment with that, or like trying to forehand deeper ones?
Yeah, I guess I should amend my previous comment. I love the shallowness for forehand, but I have pretty big hands, and the backhand feels not great. I bagged the pig for a while, and on backhand, for me, it feels amazing, but it was a bit too kind of chunky on the forehand. So it's like I can't have both. So I've just gone with fan gripping them only for backhand to kind of minimize the depth.
Okay.
Or shallowness.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I get that a lot. So that's where I guess would the pyro kind of jump in? What does the pyro fill inside your zones?
It's It goes farther for sure, and it's really overstable. I have the Prism Plasma one, and it's based off the numbers. I was like, oh, it's going to be like a a Wasp or a Rock X3, and I got it, and it was like almost a Gator.
Yeah.
So it's honestly, if on the chart, it's probably not quite accurate. I'd probably bump it up to at least as stable as my ESP zone.
Okay. So what does it do? Tell me about situations where you're coming up. Is it sheerly the distance, or what opportunities are you stepping up to a hole or stepping up to a shot and you're saying, oh, this is a pyro versus my ESP sparkle zone or ESP glow zone? Is that what you said it was? Glow.
It's mainly two things. It's the skip. For me, the zone will skip a little bit, but the pyro just it's on ice skates. It will skip around a corner and keep going. So it if I really need to skip, and then the other thing is it just not if I'm throwing straight, but if I'm throwing a big spike Hyzer, the zone just kind of dies. Whereas the pyro, I feel like I can get at least another 30, 40 feet out of it on a big Hyzer.
Okay. Awesome.
And so the pyro, are you mainly backhanding the pyro, or are you doing forehand and backhand?
I definitely forehand that one as well. But yeah, it's both.
Okay. So that putter blend zone probably feels like it flies more like the putter slot, if I had to guess. I guess it could also feel like a mid-range. It really is like probably a perfect hybrid of if your watt is your straight flyer, the putter blend zone feels sort of that like straight to overstable.
I'd say it goes farther than my Envy did, but not as far as a Luna. So it's kind of that slightly longer range putter distance.
Yeah, that makes sense. So talk to me about people who are watching this on YouTube are going to see that there's an atrocity to the chart, but I have to assume that you've modified the flight numbers because you've got a comet and a rock, and you have your rock listed as being less stable than your comet. So do you have the world's most overstable comet, or do you have a what's the deal with this rock and comet situation?
Yeah. So I guess I should point out all the flight numbers on the chart I modified.
I love it.
Except for my putting putters, because I'm pretty in tune with how they all fly.
Nice.
But the comet and the rock they're two discs that I never thought I would throw. I would always pick them up at a used store and be like, this is terrible. I'm just going to go throw my EMAC Truths or something. And I threw EMAC Truths for about a year and a half. And then one day I got a Beat DX Rock and actually threw the thing. And I was like, oh, this is what everyone was talking about. So I did that. I threw rocks for about 6 months. And then a couple months ago, I grabbed a comet because I was like, why not? All the old timers are talking about it. I see Michael Johansson tearing it up.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Especially
so
in the wood.
I threw it, and I was instantly in love with the flight. So I have a Z Comet, so it's pretty straight. I can make it finish, left, straight, or right. I probably throw that 90% of the holes on my home course here. And then the rock is a super old R Pro rock. It's not a Rock Plus, just a regular R Pro rock, which is weird, and it's pretty flippy. So it has that rock super slow flip, but it'll just kind of keep going all the way right.
So with you throwing your comet on 90% of tee shots at your home course, is there a world that you ever think that the comet will just replace the rock and you'll put in a new comet, or is the rock kind of like griffined in the fact of it's so flippy you don't know a comet will ever get there?
I could definitely see the comet kicking the rock out for sure. I think maybe some old ESP ones or something like that might get to that same level of flippiness. But yeah, I definitely like to be, mostly comets eventually.
That's awesome. And I'd imagine I'm not deep in the comet market, but MJ's been throwing them for what feels like decades. I'd have to assume that it's very similar to the zone. And you guys, Discraft fanboys, let me know in the comments. I'd have to assume that there are lots of comet variations in plastic as well.
There's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot.
They're even still making them. They did a tour series for them last year of the UV Z ones and the ESP swirls. So they're always coming out.
Well, man, must be nice, guys. I really got to get into the discraft game beyond my fairways because I just like that they actually listen to their people, unlike other companies who won't be named who won't make anything regarding halos. But it's fine. Let's talk about fairway drivers, shall we? Talk to me about the Extreme because if I was not connected with Foundation, the Extreme is a disc that I would have been like, oh, yeah, I know it exists, but like only lunatics would bag one of these things. And now we work closely with one of those people who swears by his Extreme. So, talk to me about the Extreme and the Talon because they both look very beef.
Yeah, the Extreme, it's a Big Z one from Ledgestone, I think last year.
Yeah.
And it actually kicked my Zone OS out of the bag because I was finding the Zone OS was the stability I wanted, but I had to throw it so hard to get that stability. If I was throwing it soft, it would just act like my normal zone. So I wanted something that I could throw soft that would still get these, crazy flex lines at 175 feet. So I grabbed an Extreme and it does just that. I mean, full power, it's probably going no farther than my zones. It'll land vertical and then skip 50 feet left.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much for all those little flex shots or skip shots in the woods.
Okay. And what about the Talon? What's the Talon do?
The Talon, I would describe it as like a flight of a Captain's Raptor, but the feel of a Firebird. It's really cool. I wish there was a more produced mold, but it's really overstable and feels great. It's actually kind of domey.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. The Talon is a disc that I am not that familiar with. Brad, you have held more Talons than I.
Yeah. I've held a few of them. I've never thrown one. But yeah, it felt very overstable. So I'm glad to see that matched up. And so is the Talon going farther for you than the Extreme? Is that why it's in there, or it's just one step down of stability?
I'd say both. It flies like I had a Neutron Terra in the bag, and it flies like a more overstable Terra. So, same speed. So yeah, I'm definitely throwing it for that kind of champion Firebird kind of flex line, or I guess in Colorado it would be wind shots, but you don't really have much wind in the woods.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so if that is the cap wrap champion Firebird, the Votum slots into like the straight Firebird, that sort of overstable slot then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's honestly more overstable than I was expecting. And that's where it kind of gets in this little fight with my Eagle. Because the Votum feels amazing and the Eagle flies amazing. So they're kind of at odds with each other. But I'd say the Votum is definitely probably maybe like a beat-in Terra type of stability.
Okay. So it's getting into a fight with your Eagle. What plastic is your Eagle in? It's
an old Star Eagle. And it's pretty beat up and kind of domey. And it flies like the perfect like C-line FD. Like you can make it work off of flat, maybe turn a little and come back. Has very little fade for an Eagle. Or you can give it a little Hyzer flip as well. Interesting. Have you tried like a fresh Eagle, comparing it with the Votum? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say the Votum is more overstable. And again, if I had a Votum in the Eagle's stability, I would just throw that because it feels so good. So I don't really want to throw a fresh Eagle because they don't feel great for me. Okay. Unless they're the flat top ones, but those are so hard to find.
Can I ask an odd question? Mm-hmm. Maybe not a super odd question, but the courses you play, are a lot of them designed with harsh right angles?
I would say generally.
You're meaning right angles like 90-degree turns?
Yeah, or like just severe like dog legs.
There's definitely some. I'd say most of the shots for me are a straight comet, maybe a little finish right, and then the others are like a 90-degree left dog leg or little downhill hole. So it's not much in between. Because
the reason I ask is, again, for like the woods golf you're playing, you still have a lot of overstable stuff. And again, this is not a knock to you at all, but you're not throwing 500 feet. So you have a lot of overstability and then a lot of like really straight stuff. So that's what made me kind of, and you're talking about skipping a lot and like flare skips and flex lines. So I'm just picturing the courses that you're playing where there's like, here's a dead straight hole, and then the next hole is like a 90-degree angle, like straight to the left, and you need something to hit, skip, and get there, or flex all the way around and come all the way back. So sorry, that's just, I was just sitting there thinking and trying to like envision the courses you're playing, and it makes sense if that's what you're playing.
I can kind of explain that actually. For me, I find that the more overstable a disc is, the less workable it gets. So then the more I need to fill in the gaps. Like something like the Comet, I can make that work anything from a hole that goes left to way right. So I find that in the woods, I need the kind of more little slots in between for the overstable.
Fascinating. Okay.
That makes me very excited for the recommendations today, by the way.
Come on. That's what we like to hear. So let's talk about the last two discs in the bag then, the XL and the Diamond.
Yeah, so the XL is a disc that I tried really early on, and I loved it. I had it for about a week, and then I threw it right into a lake. So I was like, well, shoot. Yeah. And then I kind of ignored it. I went and threw other stuff. And then I had a C-Line FD that was really great. Lost that. And I went and got a Cicada. Loved that and lost it the day I got it. So I was like, well, I guess I'll try the XL again. So I went and got one, another Ledgestone one. The grip is terrible. It's the Z Swirl, and it's so bad, but it flies great. I really like it on forehands as well. That little flip up to turn.
Yep.
So I'd say it's like a right in between the Cicada and the Sting for me.
Okay. Interesting. So it definitely, you wouldn't say super flippy, but it isn't necessarily a like naturally straight disc either.
No, you definitely have to put it on some Hyzer if you want it to go straight.
Okay. How would it compare stability wise to your Comet? Like
definitely flippier. It's closer to the Rock.
Interesting. Okay.
Cool.
So then Diamond, what's the Diamond do there?
The Diamond, so I had this 150 gram Star Valkyrie that I was throwing, kind of like Yuli's Pro D Avenger SS or something to get out of jail free. You can throw it on a ton of Hyzer and it'll roll. And it was an old PFN one, and I was like, I don't really want to lose that in the woods. So I got a Diamond. It's it's the Opto Ice Orbit. It's like 158 grams. So it's I mainly use it for just scrambling if I need to throw a little backhand fan grip on a ton of Hyzer and have it kind of flip up to flat and fly down the fairway. And I guess I would use it for rollers, but not in this state.
Yeah.
Okay. So very, very utility. Almost like spin coming out. I can't make the spin work. It's too far, or it's too far for the spin to work. The Diamond would be the answer there.
Yeah, it's so ridiculously flippy.
Okay.
I almost can't make it. If I'm power gripping, I pretty much can't make it not roll.
Fascinating. Okay. Well, Brad, that brings us to you then. You threw two discs today. Yes. You've heard the information. You've heard the plot. What'd you throw today?
Well, I threw my mic. I threw a Passion today. This very out of focus Passion. And then I threw a Cinnamon today. And I was telling Robbie, Robbie gave me several. I mean, I think he gave me 5 or 6 discs to like pick from. I wanted to give the Passion another chance because the Passion I have a tattered, awful past. So I wanted it to be a redemption story. And then the Cinnamon, Clash sent us a bunch of their new stuff several months ago. And my oldest grabbed the Cinnamon right away. He's like, "Yep, Dad, this is my forehand disc. I'm taking this," and I never got to throw it. So I texted him yesterday after Robbie gave me the list. I'm like, "Hey, I want to need that Cinnamon back. I gotta throw it now. Dad's got to throw it for work." So very excited to throw both of them today. And I will say they probably fit in the same like kind of area, and definitely where I'm seeing Robbie's thought now, seeing the chart, but very, very similar flights, but different utilities between the two of them, if that makes sense. So I'm excited to walk through them with you. Yeah.
So when we went into this, my thought was hearing the cloudiness of the fairways, the difficulty, at least I'm seeing in the bag, is you have your overstable side in terms of your extreme and the Talon. And then your Votum kind of slots in there. And then the Eagle's living in its like own world of it kind of it has to bear a lot of the burden, it sounds like, because the XL, you got to throw it. There's a lot of Hyzer being needed, and you can't softly throw Hyzer flips unless you're throwing something like super flippy, like a diamond. So I'm sure if you're stepping up to long wooded fairways, it's like, oh, this is tough. So to me, where it can come down to is like, I need the distance, but I'm trying to murder these fairway drivers to get the distance out of it. So don't make the jump to like, let's say a full distance driver, but somewhere in that control range. That was my thought process was, let's try to find a disc that gives distance without having to work as hard, which could sound funny in terms of throwing a faster disc means you don't have to work as hard. But if you just throw it normal with the amount of speed you're throwing rather than trying to full mash of, anyways, that's at least where I went. So Brad, we've talked a lot about hand feel and grip and things like that in this episode. So where do those rank up before we even talk about the flight of the disc?
Listen, here's my number one complaint about the Passion has always been my complaint about the Passion. The hand feel sucks. I'm sorry. It feels awful. And for my hand, that's the caveat here, right? I just can't, it just does not feel good. I like the flight of the Passion. I wish I liked throwing it, but it just feels bad. It's one of like Discraft's few molds, in my opinion, that has like a flashing issue. Like this bottom, like micro bead is rough and it feels terrible. I think it's just how it perfectly lines up in kind of like the crease of my finger. It just feels really bad. And they perfectly line up in like both the creases of my finger. And it just feels bad. But I sucked it up today. And like, I just kind of like put that out of my mind because I knew that was going to be a problem. The cinnamon, it feels great. It feels awesome. It feels comfortable. It's a prototype, but it's in there steady plastic. It has a little bit of gum to it, but not too much. It still has a sturdy feeling. And it felt great both backhand and forehand when I threw it today. The Passion felt terrible backhand and forehand. You heard it here. I'm not saying it's a bad disc. I'm saying for me, I do not like how it feels.
Okay. This is the passion that I'm experiencing about this Passion, Eli. This is something that I have not felt out of Brad since like episode 5. Because I am trying to remember what disc it was. It was a trilogy disc, but I remember Brad going out and throwing it and being like, this is the worst feeling plastic that I've ever held. It is not good. I don't like it. And I cannot throw this disc. And so we were like, oh, well, I wonder which one he's going to recommend.
Yeah. Right.
So
it's sad. Yeah. So probably spoilers there, but I still want to talk about the flight and like my thoughts. Cause there's way more people that love the Passion than hate the Passion. Let's just be honest. We're a smaller group, I think, of non-Passion or anti-Passion.
I have a Passion in my bag right now, but I still haven't thrown it. I literally haven't gotten to the field yet. I'm not only have I not gotten to the field, I haven't gotten to the course and had an opportunity that said, oh, throw a Passion here.
And you have 2 waiting for you in the warehouse, by the way.
Yeah. Which I'm very stoked for this, because based on how it's been described to me, but I can understand what we're saying about this hand feel situation. So we cut our mind off right here, and we make ourselves say, okay, cool. Let's just see these Frisbees fly. You head out there, Brad. Expectations were obviously low for the Passion, but in terms of like just straight flat shots, how are they flying?
And yeah, just to be clear, expectations were neutral with the Passion because I knew that I was not going to like the hand feel, but I wanted to be as unbiased as possible. So I actually threw more shots with the Passion than I did the cinnamon, just to give it some extra like time. Flat. Coming back to Robbie's point about like not having to mush these to get distance. I didn't, just because it was cold out. Also, it was like early this morning, it was cold out and I'm like really sore from jiu-jitsu yesterday. I was not throwing like hard shots at all. I was probably throwing like 60% power, but really focusing on like good release and angle. I mean, I was easily hitting over 300 with both of these without having to kill them, which is great. But I was making sure I really had a good grip. My angle was good and my spin was good coming out of my hand. Thanks, Tech Disc, for like making me aware of nose angle and all this other stuff, right? But flat like 60-70% power shot on the Passion is probably as expected. It went really straight and then like kind of turned very slowly as it went. And then depending on like how clean my flat release was, if I gave it like maybe a little bit more Hyzer, obviously it would kind of cruise flat. It would turn a little bit and then maybe hook up like a little bit at the end. So it definitely had like input, whatever input I gave it, it would give it, and it was like a little less understable than that. The cinnamon, it's funny. I didn't really have an expectation for the cinnamon. I kind of just haven't heard a lot about it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I always thought it felt good, so it was interesting. But I mean, based on the flight numbers, I'm like, well, this is kind of going to be like a, my experience with Clash. I feel like all of their molds are a little more overstable than they may let on. That's my experience. It could just be me throwing them, my arm speed. But when I threw the cinnamon like flat, it was very, whatever input I gave it, it took. So if I threw flat, it stayed very flat for a long time and then had a little fade at the end. If I gave it Anheuser, it would definitely turn. I did notice on Anheuser though, if I did give it turn, it was like, didn't want to roll over. It would just like turn. And then it was, I don't know that I threw a shot where it didn't come back a little bit. It just had like this sneaky end of flight stability when I was throwing it on Anheuser. And then like on a Hyzer line, I could Hyzer flip the Passion. I could not Hyzer flip the cinnamon for whatever reason. Even if maybe I wasn't throwing it hard enough to, but it wasn't like, even if I threw it on like kind of an angle, like maybe like a slight Hyzer angle, it's not like it like dove on me. It just kind of held that for a long time. So it's like it wanted to flip, but maybe I just wasn't hitting it quite hard enough to flip. So like that's kind of my experience on forehand Passion. It just didn't feel good for me, so I just didn't get a clean release. So I don't want to like really knock it on forehand, but if I threw it kind of like easy, that was like where I got like maybe my cleaner release with the Passion. It would flip up and go straight, but again, I didn't throw it very far because I wasn't throwing it very hard either. The cinnamon feels a lot like similar to the lift, which I love to forehand, and it has a very similar flight. It'll flip up. You could even like kind of maybe if you need to give a little Anheuser, it'll turn, but it'll still come back. And then even like it's pretty easy to Hyzer flip on forehand. And I mean, I was throwing like 250 with it at the power I was throwing, so nothing like terrible.
Yeah.
Nice.
Looking at the flight numbers of the cinnamon, 9.5 minus 1.5, 2 are its flight numbers. So it reminds me, and even how you're describing it, Brad, is a long time debate for people that before Discraft like really, stormed the scene with the signing of a young Paul Macbeth. There was the debate amongst fairway throwers of, okay, you're either a T-bird guy or an eagle guy. And so between those two, it was like the T-birds were always straighter, but eagles had more range. So like they could get more turn out of them, but they also had more fade. That sounds very much like what the cinnamon has in its capability.
Well, when you were describing your Comet earlier, again, I think people have very different experiences with Comets, the plastic, how beat it ends. But your particular Z Comet, that kind of sounds like you can kind of mold it to however you want. I feel like this could be that in like a control driver for you. Because I feel like I felt very comfortable almost immediately after a couple shots, just kind of seeing how it flew. I'm like, okay, well, so I was like, okay, well, I know if I throw an Anheuser, a little Anheuser with this, it's going to give me a full flex and come back. It's not going to roll. I can throw forehand because of how it did this. If I want to give it a line, like a little Hyzer line, but I need it to carry for a while, I know I can do that. So I felt like it's like, hey, this is a very versatile disc for like, it's not just like hey, this is my slightly overstable fair or control driver that I can just smash and get to flare. And the cinnamon had a great ground flare if I gave it enough Hyzer. If I needed to make it skip, it would definitely do that.
Okay. So it sounds like recommendation is the cinnamon. Yeah.
Cinnamon. Yep. Sorry, I wanted to be a little dramatic. Yeah,
Oh, I
recommendation of
liked it. I
cinnamon.
liked
Yeah.
it.
Let me. Hey, Silas, can you hand me that right there?
I thought it was going to possibly go with his
The file
zooming
cabinet?
aspect that he was doing.
Oh no, that's a special occasion.
So, Eli.
Oh yeah, cinnamon. Cinnamon
Yeah,
is
go
my
ahead.
recommendation. Here, I was having Silas. Here's this. See this?
Wow.
For those of you that can't see, I just threw the passion in the trash can.
Wow.
That's how I feel about it.
Brody's going to have thoughts, especially because we didn't even
Brody's
talk about
much
the
better than
passion.
with me. We're not even playing the same type of disc golf. For
That's
me,
fair.
that's where that belongs. If it's good, if it's not good, throw it in the trash. Am I right, guys?
That's that is yep.
No, false. Recycle it.
I was gonna say, we definitely
Send it
have
to
a friend
Jesse.
who would disagree.
If
But,
it's not good, grind it into pellets and make a better disc.
yeah. So Eli, would you be interested in trying the cinnamon and come back on and let us know how it flies?
Absolutely. That sounds great.
Come on. Well, Eli, thank you so much for tuning in, man. Thanks for making an early morning for us. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to having you back on a future episode.
Sounds
Yes,
great.
man.
All right, that has to be an in the bag first in terms of we have never seen a disc literally get thrown in the trash. We have seen discs get trashed by how we discuss them, but we have never seen that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a little disclaimer, my thoughts and feelings do not reflect Foundation's thoughts or feelings about the passion, nor Brute. Yeah, they're yelling in the background if you can't hear them. Everybody here loves the passion but me, but I'm just used to it. It's okay. For me, it doesn't feel good, guys. Okay, I would never throw it away. Really, it's right here, right? I'm going to send it to Jesse and grind it up and make it into a new disc. But or give it to Hunter and he can throw it.
Yeah, I mean the beauty is right. There are a ton of different discs out there. That's why we still have a show. Is because there are a ton of different discs, a ton of different opportunities out there for you to find what works for you. So while the passion may work for some, it doesn't work for everybody. But if you have a disc that you've been trying to make work and it just doesn't seem to work for you, where can they go, Brad?
Yep. So you can go to foundationdisc.com. So as always, we have a lot going on at the warehouse today or this week. It's been a heavy week for stuff. Trilogy had a giant release. There's some Kristen Tatar 2-time world champion stuff, a Huck Lab stamp on bears and harps and sapphires, like some random stuff, which is awesome. Opto Air Sapphire for you sapphire throwers or maybe newer folk. That would be a great disc, I think, to get into like even the controlled distance driver category as well. Swirly FDs actually came out, and then the Ella Hansen Otter FDs came out. We finally put some AGL on the site. We have the Baobab on there now and the Acacia. Also, ITC Discs, a new disc company, made the Mercury. Gateway manufactures those. So we dropped a couple different plastics of the Mercury putter for all of you. Like, hey, I need to try out some new putters. They feel pretty good. I mean, I think I would definitely give them a try if you were into that sort of thing.
Beaded or beadless?
I think it has a micro bead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it feels very Wizard-esque, to be honest with you, to me. So like a little bit of a bead on the bottom. We also have the big thing is we're going to do pre-orders for the special run time lapse and then the stock run time lapse.
Yeah.
Also the Gyropalooza boxes are coming out as well. So we'll be doing that. What else is coming out? Oh, Neutron hexes are back, everybody. So
come on.
Keep an eye out for all of that. Also Foundation combo stamps. So if you weren't able to get your hands on those, again, we have Zone OSs, we have Heats, Nukes, Passions, Z Zones, you name it. We got it on the Zone OS, if I didn't say it already. Foundation combo stamp dropping as well. So big weekend. Oh, got some new wristbands for you wristband folks. So make sure you check those out. But yeah, all that foundationdisc.com. Remember, recently restocked is your best friend. As we're putting up all this stuff, and you can scroll through there and say, hey, I have a spot in my bag, or hey, I need to replace something in my bag. You can order it now, get it shipped to your home in just a couple days, and say, hey, this is good, so I'm going to keep it in my bag.
Absolutely. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Have a great week.
See y'all.